What if the thing standing between you and everything you want is not a lack of resources, not a lack of opportunity, and not a lack of effort? What if the primary obstacle is the habit of looking too closely at what is currently real? This sounds like irresponsible advice. It sounds like the kind of thinking that makes sensible people uncomfortable. But there is a specific, sophisticated, and genuinely powerful distinction between ignoring reality, in the naive sense of pretending problems do not exist, and ignoring reality, in the specific sense this audiobook describes. The disciplined refusal to let current circumstances be the final word on what becomes possible. Every person who has ever built something that did not yet exist had to ignore the reality that it did not yet exist. They had to hold an inner picture that contradicted the outer evidence. That capacity, developed deliberately, is what this audiobook teaches. The chapters ahead will take you through the complete mechanism of how inner vision overrides outer circumstance when applied with genuine skill. You will learn why the subconscious mind is more consequential than any external condition. You will understand how belief shapes what you see before you decide what you do. You will discover the specific practices of manifestation, mental discipline, subconscious reprogramming, and faith that allow an inner picture to gradually replace the outer one that contradicts it. This is not escapism. This is the most sophisticated form of engagement with reality available. If you are enjoying this audiobook and want to continue building real communication confidence, subscribe to this channel now. More chapters are coming, and each one will guide you step by step through mastering every conversation. Chapter 1: Why Looking at Reality is Keeping You Stuck. The first and most counterintuitive truth in this entire audiobook is one that virtually every high achiever, every genuine creator, and every person who has built something significantly larger than their starting point discovered somewhere along the way. Staring at current reality too intently is one of the most reliable methods available for ensuring that current reality does not change. This is not a mystical claim. It has a specific, concrete neurological explanation that this chapter will walk through in detail. But before the mechanism is described, the core insight needs to land with full weight. The person who is perpetually, urgently fixated on the gap between where they are and where they want to be is continuously reinforcing the neural architecture of that gap, making it not less real, but more real, not less defining, but more defining, with every anxious, detailed examination of its dimensions. The brain does not experience reality the way a camera captures an image. A camera captures whatever is in front of it, with equal attention to every element of the frame. The brain is radically selective, and the specific principle governing its selectivity is relevance to the dominant concerns, beliefs, and expectations that are currently most active. This selectivity is the function of the reticular activating system, a dense network of neurons at the base of the brain's stem that acts as the primary filter between the 11 million bits of information available to the senses at any moment and the roughly 40 bits that reach conscious awareness. What the reticular activating system is primed to let through is whatever the dominant inner state has been instructing it to treat as important. When the dominant inner state is anxious, urgent attention to current difficulty, the filter is calibrated to deliver more evidence of current difficulty. This mechanism explains what sounds like a paradox. To most people, beginning to work seriously with the inner life. That the urgent, focused, detailed attention to a problem often produces more of the problem rather than less. Not because attention makes problems worse in some mystical sense, but because the brain primed to find evidence of a specific problem gets very good at finding it, while simultaneously filtering out the evidence of possible solutions, possible opportunities, and possible movement in a different direction that is also available in the same environment. The person who wakes up every morning and immediately reviews everything wrong with their financial situation is training their perceptual system to be exceptionally skilled at finding financial evidence of the wrong kind. The person who wakes up every morning and genuinely attends to what is working, what is available, and what genuine opportunity exists is training the same system toward a genuinely different calibration. Neville Goddard, one of the 20th century's most distinctive and most influential teachers on the relationship between imagination and reality, made a specific and radical claim that runs through all his work. Imagination is not a supplement to reality that you use when you cannot have the thing itself. Imagination is the creative faculty through which reality is actually made. The events of external life are the shadows cast by the movements of the inner world of imagination, belief, and expectation. Accepting current outer reality as the final word on what is possible is, in this understanding, the specific mistake that keeps most people's lives organized around the repetition of what has already been, rather than the creation of what genuinely could be. The person who has genuinely understood this does not ignore their current reality out of naivety. They hold it loosely as useful information about the current state of their inner world's previous output, while directing their primary creative attention toward the inner picture they are genuinely committed to manifesting. The distinction between productive engagement with current reality and counterproductive fixation on it is one of the most practically important distinctions in this entire body of teaching. Productive engagement includes understanding what resources are currently available, what specific next steps are practically accessible, and what specific information the current situation provides about what the inner world has been generating. This is the genuine use of current reality as information. Counterproductive fixation is the specific, emotionally charged, repetitive rehearsal of what is wrong, what is lacking, what seems impossible, and what has always been true about this category of experience, driven by the anxiety of the gap rather than by genuine problem-solving intelligence. The productive engagement is brief, specific, and action-oriented. The counterproductive fixation is extended, diffuse, emotionally consuming, and produces primarily more of itself. The specific skill this audiobook is teaching is not the skill of pretending current reality does not exist. It is the specific skill of choosing where to invest sustained, emotionally genuine inner attention across the ordinary hours of an ordinary day. Current reality will always be visible. The person who has developed genuine skill in working with the inner life is not someone who has somehow made current reality disappear from their awareness. They are someone who has developed the specific capacity to not allow current reality to be the primary, dominant, continuously rehearsed content of their inner experience, redirecting that inner attention instead toward the specific inner picture of what they are genuinely committed to creating. with the specific quality of genuine, felt engagement that makes inner pictures into subconscious programs, rather than leaving them as pleasant fantasies. Every chapter in this audiobook will take a different angle on the same essential teaching. The mechanisms will differ, the specific practices will differ, the particular dimensions of life addressed will differ. But the consistent thread running through all of them is the same radical redirection of inner attention away from the perpetual urgent review of what is currently real and toward the deliberate, skillfully maintained cultivation of what is genuinely desired. This redirection is not achieved through denial or suppression. It is achieved through the specific understanding of why inner vision is more creative than outer evidence, and through the consistent daily practice of applying that understanding with genuine skill, genuine patience, and genuine faith in the mechanism rather than in the immediate results. The question worth sitting with at the close of this first chapter is not whether the teaching here is true in some abstract philosophical sense. The question is what your own inner life looks like when you examine it honestly. What is the dominant content of your inner attention across an ordinary day? What do you rehearse most consistently, most emotionally intensely, most automatically, when unguarded? What specific picture of reality is being continuously reinforced through the concentrated force of your most habitual and most emotionally engaged inner attention? The answers to these questions are the most direct available indicators of what your inner world has been manufacturing as your outer experience, and they are the starting point from which everything this audiobook teaches becomes genuinely applicable. Chapter 2. The inner picture that overrides the outer evidence. Every structure that has ever been built in the physical world began as a picture held in someone's mind before a single brick was laid or a single board was cut. This is so obvious in the domain of physical construction that it barely registers as remarkable. The architect imagines before they design. The designer designs before the builder builds. The inner picture precedes the outer reality with such consistency and such reliability in this domain that nobody would think of beginning construction without it. What most people have never been taught is that the same sequence applies to every other domain of human experience, including the domains that do not involve explicit design or explicit construction. The inner picture of a relationship, held with sufficient consistency and sufficient emotional intensity, tends to produce the outer relational experience that corresponds to it. The inner picture of a financial life, held with sufficient consistency and sufficient conviction, tends to produce the outer financial reality that reflects it. The mechanism through which this production occurs is not supernatural. It is the specific combination of perceptual filtering, behavioral influence, and interpersonal broadcast that the subconscious mind deploys in service of whatever inner picture has been most consistently and most emotionally, genuinely impressed upon it. The subconscious does not evaluate whether the inner picture is desirable from an objective standpoint or from the standpoint of what current outer reality suggests is realistic. It simply receives what has been consistently and emotionally genuinely impressed upon it, and then organizes the perceptual, behavioral, and interpersonal systems of the person around making the outer world correspond to that inner picture. This is a description of a mechanism, not of magic. The mechanism produces results that can look magical to someone who does not understand it, but it operates through entirely ordinary psychological and neurological processes. Neville Goddard's concept of living in the end is the specific practical technique most directly aimed at developing and maintaining the inner picture with the specific quality that allows it to override the outer evidence. Living in the end means imaginatively inhabiting the specific, felt experience of the desired outcome as if it has already occurred, not watching a mental movie of the desired future from a spectator's position outside of it, but genuinely entering the imagined scene from the inside, feeling what would be felt, seeing what would be seen, hearing what would be heard, from the specific perspective of the person for whom the desired outcome is simply the current reality. The quality of this imaginative inhabiting is what determines whether the inner picture is simply a pleasant daydream or a genuine subconscious program in the process of being installed. The felt quality of the imagination is the specific variable that most distinguishes effective inner picture work from ineffective inner picture work, and it is the variable most consistently underemphasized in popular presentations of visualization technique. The felt quality is not the same as the visual quality. A person can construct a vivid mental image of a desired outcome while remaining emotionally detached from it, observing it from a distance, with aesthetic appreciation but without genuine emotional investment. This kind of visualization produces entertainment, but minimal subconscious programming because the subconscious registers emotional intensity as the signal of importance rather than visual detail as the signal of importance. The inner picture that installs itself as subconscious programming is the one that is held with genuine felt engagement, with a real sense in the body of the specific emotions that would characterize the experience of the desired outcome as current reality. The specific question that makes the felt quality of the imagination accessible is the question, what would I feel if this were already true? Not what would I see, not what would be different in the external world, but what specific quality of feeling would characterize my daily experience if the desired outcome were simply the current state of things. This question moves the imaginative work from the visual to the felt, from the descriptive to the experiential, from the observed to the inhabited. And the specific feelings found through this question, held with genuine body-level presence in the regular practice of inner picture cultivation, are the specific content that the subconscious receives as the genuine experience it is designed to reproduce in the outer world. The outer evidence that contradicts the inner picture is not an obstacle to the inner picture's eventual manifestation. It is simply the residue of previous inner pictures that have already completed their work of producing corresponding outer experience. The current financial situation is the outer expression of the inner financial picture that preceded it. The current relational dynamic is the outer expression of the inner relational picture that generated it. Understanding this relationship between previous inner pictures and current outer reality removes the emotional power that the outer evidence has to discourage the inner work, because the discouraging evidence is revealed as old output rather than as a limitation on new creation. The evidence is not telling you what is possible. It is telling you what was previously programmed. And programming can be genuinely changed. The practice of deliberately cultivating the inner picture in preference to the perpetual review of the outer evidence requires a specific quality of inner discipline that does not develop overnight, and that is most reliably developed through the consistent daily practice described in later chapters of this audiobook. What can be said here is that this discipline is not a form of suppression or denial. The outer evidence continues to be visible and continues to be engaged with practically where practical engagement is appropriate. What changes is the amount of sustained, emotionally invested inner attention that the outer evidence receives versus the amount directed toward the inner picture of what is genuinely desired. This shift in allocation of inner attention is the specific practice through which the inner picture gradually becomes the dominant subconscious program, and the dominant subconscious program is what eventually becomes the new outer reality. The specific courage required to genuinely maintain an inner picture that contradicts current outer evidence is worth acknowledging directly because it is real, and it is consistently underestimated by people who encounter these teachings in their inspirational form, without the honest acknowledgement of what they actually require in practice. The inner picture of significant financial abundance held during a period of genuine financial stress requires genuine inner courage. The inner picture of genuine creative success held during a period of genuine creative rejection requires genuine inner courage. The inner picture of genuine relational warmth and connection held during a period of genuine relational difficulty requires genuine inner courage. This courage is not bravado or wishful thinking. It is the specific, informed, skill-based trust in the mechanism of inner picture over outer evidence that this audiobook is building chapter by chapter. Chapter 3: Subconscious Reprogramming. The engine under the hood. The subconscious mind is not a mystical concept, borrowed from outdated psychological theory. It is a description of the specific dimension of neural processing that operates continuously below the threshold of conscious awareness, and that is responsible for the vast majority of the behaviors, interpretations, emotional responses, and perceptual choices that determine the actual quality and character of any given life. Research estimates vary, but most neuroscientists converge on the understanding that conscious processing accounts for somewhere between 5 and 10% of the brain's total activity. The remaining 90 to 95% is subconscious processing, operating at speeds and scales that conscious awareness cannot match, managing everything from the regulation of bodily functions to the execution of learned behavioral sequences to the application of deeply held belief patterns to the interpretation of every incoming experience. The specific significance of this ratio for the practical work of creating genuine change in any life cannot be overstated. When a person decides consciously to be more financially responsible, to be more open in their relationships, to pursue a more ambitious professional direction, or to develop any other genuinely positive change, that decision is made in the 5 to 10% of the system that operates consciously. The 90 to 95% of the system that operates subconsciously is either running programs that support the decision or running programs that continuously undermine it, and the subconscious 95% wins this competition in the overwhelming majority of cases where genuine conflict exists between conscious intention and subconscious programming. This is not a failure of willpower or of genuine desire for change. It is the predictable outcome of trying to steer a ship from a rudder that controls 5% of the steering force. The developmental period during which the foundational subconscious programs were written spans roughly from birth through age 7. During this period, the brain operates predominantly in the theta and delta brainwave states that in adults are associated with deep hypnosis and deep sleep. The significance of this is that the critical faculty of the conscious mind, the analytical, evaluating, comparing function that allows an adult to assess new information before accepting it, is not yet active during these years. Everything is absorbed directly into the subconscious without evaluation. The emotional atmosphere of the household, the repeated verbal messages of caregivers, the specific experiences with safety and danger, with love and its withdrawal, with money and its presence or absence, with the self and what the self is considered capable of. All of this writes itself directly onto the subconscious as its foundational operating system. The specific programs written during this period feel, from the inside, like objective reality rather than like programs. The person who grew up in a household where genuine emotional intimacy was consistently unavailable does not experience this as having learned a limiting belief about the availability of intimacy. They experience it as the way relationships simply are. The person who grew up in a financial environment of chronic scarcity does not experience this as having absorbed a financial program organized around lack. They experience it as the way money and financial life simply work. The programs are invisible as programs precisely because they were written before the critical faculty that would recognize them as programs was developed. They feel like perception. They are programming. Revising subconscious programs requires accessing the subconscious at the level where programs are written and read. This level is not accessible through conscious deliberation, intellectual argument, or the kind of surface-level positive thinking that operates through the conscious mind, while leaving the subconscious programs entirely unchanged. The subconscious is most accessible during the naturally occurring altered states of the transitions between sleep and waking, the hypnagogic state entering sleep, and the hypnopompic state emerging from it. During these transitions, the brainwave activity shifts from the beta and alpha of ordinary waking consciousness through the theta range that corresponds to maximum subconscious receptivity. New content introduced during these windows, with genuine emotional engagement and genuine sensory richness, reaches the subconscious with the same directness that the original developmental programming achieved. The content most effective for subconscious reprogramming combines several specific elements. The first is present tense. The subconscious does not process future orientation well. Instructions delivered in the future tense, I will be financially secure, are processed as describing a state that does not currently exist. Instructions delivered in the present tense, I am someone for whom financial security is simply how life works, are processed as current reality and organized around accordingly. The second element is specificity. Vague intentions produce vague subconscious programs. Specific sensory details and specific emotional qualities produce specific functional programs. The third element is repetition. The depth of any subconscious impression corresponds directly to the number of times it is delivered with genuine felt engagement. One session of vivid inner picture work produces minimal, lasting subconscious change. The same session, repeated daily across weeks and months, produces genuine, deep, durable subconscious revision. The resistance that is often encountered when beginning genuine subconscious reprogramming work is not evidence that the work is not working. It is the specific response of established programs to incoming content that contradicts them. The subconscious has a consistency maintenance function, a tendency to preserve established patterns against revision in the same way that an immune system resists foreign bodies. When new programming content directly contradicts a deeply established program, the subconscious generates the specific felt discomfort of cognitive dissonance. The specific quality of this does not feel right, that can easily be misinterpreted as evidence that the new content is false, rather than as the predictable response of an established program encountering genuine competition from new content. Understanding this resistance as a feature of the process, rather than as an obstacle to it, is the specific understanding that allows genuine persistence through the early stages of genuine reprogramming work. The genuine fruits of successful subconscious reprogramming are first felt in the interior before they appear in the exterior. The change in the quality of automatic thoughts in relevant situations is among the earliest indicators. Where previously the automatic thought in a financially relevant situation was organized around scarcity, the person who has genuinely begun to revise the financial subconscious program begins to notice automatic thoughts of a different quality arising with increasing frequency in the same type of situation. Thoughts organized around possibility and sufficiency rather than a lack. These interior changes precede the exterior changes, which is why the period between the beginning of genuine inner work and the appearance of visible outer results is the most commonly cited reason for abandoning practices that were genuinely working at the level where they needed to work. Chapter 4. The Creative Power of Controlled Imagination. Imagination has been so thoroughly categorized as a childhood activity, a creative luxury, or an escape from the serious business of reality that most adults have almost entirely lost contact with it as a genuine faculty of enormous practical power. The imagination of the average adult has been progressively suppressed since approximately age 7, when educational systems begin training the mind toward analytical, evidence-based, convergent thinking, and away from the open, generative, divergent thinking that imagination requires. By adulthood, most people can remember a time when imagination was vivid and effortless, but they cannot reliably access it on demand for the specific purpose of genuinely impressed inner picture work. Recovering and developing this capacity is one of the most practically valuable investments available in any genuine program of inner development. Controlled imagination, as distinguished from the passive, spontaneous daydreaming that most people associate with the word, is the specific capacity to deliberately construct and sustain a specific inner scene with genuine sensory richness and genuine emotional engagement, holding it stable against the mind's natural tendency to wander, and inhabiting it from the inside with the specific felt quality of someone experiencing the scene as genuinely current rather than as imagined. This capacity is a genuine skill that develops through practice in the same way that any other genuine skill develops. The person who has practiced it daily across several months can access it quickly, sustain it reliably, and inhabit it with the specific depth of felt quality that produces genuine subconscious impression. The person beginning this practice for the first time will find it more effortful, less vivid, and less sustained, which is the exact situation that would be expected with any genuinely unfamiliar skill. The specific technique Neville Goddard recommended for developing controlled imagination involves a specific physical condition and a specific mental condition used together. The physical condition is the state of relaxed, drowsy, physical stillness that occurs naturally just before sleep, sometimes achieved through deliberate progressive relaxation during the practice session. The mental condition is the specific assumption of the wish fulfilled, the inner adoption of the specific feeling of already being in the circumstances of the desired outcome, held as the current experiential reality rather than as an imagined future. The combination of deep physical relaxation with the specific feeling of the wished-for state as current reality, held at the edge of sleep in the theta brainwave state, is the specific condition under which the imagination most powerfully impresses itself on the subconscious as genuine experience. The specific scene chosen for the practice of controlled imagination carries more weight than most beginning practitioners realize. Goddard was precise about this. The scene should be a short, specific scene that implies the desired outcome has already occurred, rather than a scene depicting the desired outcome occurring. There is a subtle but consequential difference. The scene of receiving a congratulatory phone call about a desired achievement implies the achievement has already occurred and is being confirmed from the outside. The scene of witnessing the achievement happening implies it is in the process of occurring but is not yet complete. The first scene, experienced from the inside, with genuine felt quality, generates a subconscious program of already having. The second scene generates a subconscious program of about to have. Only the first produces the specific magnetic field from which what is desired most naturally flows. The emotional quality most essential to carry into the imagination session is the specific feeling of settled gratitude rather than of excited anticipation. Excited anticipation, while pleasant, carries within it the specific emotional signal of something not yet present that is expected to arrive, which is the emotional signature of wanting rather than having. Settled gratitude is the specific emotional quality of someone who already has what they are grateful for, experiencing the specific quality of genuine appreciation for something genuinely present. This settled quality, genuine rather than performed, is the specific emotional signal the subconscious receives as evidence that the imagined state is current rather than future, which is the specific signal required for the imagination to generate the corresponding subconscious program rather than simply an entertaining mental experience. Consistency of the imagination practice is more important than the duration of any individual session, a point that conflicts with the natural tendency to regard a longer session as inherently more powerful than a shorter one. A 5-minute session of genuinely focused, genuinely felt, genuinely inhabited imagination, practiced daily without exception, produces considerably more genuine subconscious impression across a month than a 45-minute session practiced 3 times across the same month. The subconscious responds to the accumulated weight of consistent impression rather than to the intensity of occasional impressive effort. This is the same principle through which any genuine habit is formed, because habits are ultimately the behavioral expressions of deeply impressed subconscious programs, and deep impression requires consistent repetition rather than occasional heroic application. The period during which controlled imagination practice produces no visible outer results is the period that most consistently defeats people who have genuinely begun the practice with genuine intention. The inner work is proceeding. The subconscious impression is accumulating. The perceptual, behavioral, and interpersonal systems are beginning to reorganize around the new inner program. But none of this is yet visible in the outer world, which continues to display the old program's output while the new program is still in the process of reaching the depth of impression required to begin generating new output. The specific skill of continuing the practice through this period, holding the inner picture with patient consistency, rather than abandoning it because the outer evidence has not yet shifted, is the specific skill that distinguishes people whose inner work eventually produces genuine outer transformation from people whose inner work remains a series of genuinely begun but never completed experiments. Controlled imagination practiced with genuine consistency across sufficient time eventually produces a specific quality shift in the daily inner experience that is the first reliable indicator of genuine progress. This shift is felt as a change in what feels natural and what feels foreign in relevant domains of life experience. The person who has been consistently imagining genuine financial ease begins to notice that the experience of financial stress feels progressively less like the obvious, inevitable way things are, and progressively more like a temporary condition, inconsistent with a deeper sense of how their financial life actually works. This shift in the felt quality of naturalness is the subconscious program genuinely changing, and it consistently precedes the outer changes that make the inner change visible to anyone who is not attending to the subtler interior indicators. Chapter 5. The Law of Assumption and Why It Changes Everything. Neville Goddard's most distinctive and most practically transformative contribution to the tradition of practical metaphysics is a principle he called the Law of Assumption. The Law of Assumption states that whatever you assume to be true about yourself and about the world tends to become true in your experience through the specific mechanism of the inner picture, the subconscious program, and the perceptual and behavioral systems organized around that program. This is a more radical and more specific claim than the more commonly known law of attraction, which describes like attracting like in a relatively general way without specifying the mechanism. The law of assumption specifies the mechanism with precision. It is your specific assumptions, the specific things you take for granted about what is real and what is available to someone exactly like you, that are the primary architects of your specific experience. The word assumption is precisely chosen. An assumption is a belief held not as a deliberate conclusion, reached through conscious evaluation of evidence, but as something taken for granted, accepted as the obvious background of experience without examination. Most people are entirely unconscious of the specific assumptions they are operating from, because assumptions, by definition, feel like simple facts rather than like adopted positions. The assumption that genuine abundance is not available to people of my particular background does not feel like an assumption. It feels like an honest assessment of obvious reality. The assumption that genuine creative success requires decades of obscure struggle before any recognition arrives does not feel like an assumption. It feels like what everyone with open eyes can observe to be true about how creative careers unfold. These feel like perception of what is real. They are assumptions, and they are shaping experience with the same reliability that any other subconscious program shapes the experience of the person running it. The specific practice Goddard recommended for working deliberately with the law of assumption is the practice of changing your assumption about a desired area of life as a foundational inner act rather than as a response to changed outer evidence. Most people have the sequence reversed. They wait for evidence in the outer world that the desired condition is becoming real before allowing themselves to genuinely assume that it is becoming real. Goddard proposes reversing the sequence entirely. Assume first, at the inner level, that the desired condition is already the current reality, and allow the outer evidence to follow from the inner assumption rather than preceding it. This reversal is what this chapter means by ignoring reality. The deliberate, skillful, informed choice to assume what is desired is real before the outer evidence confirms it. The practical difficulty of deliberately assuming something that appears to contradict current outer reality is real and should not be minimized. The outer evidence is visible, concrete, and continuous. The assumption is inner, invisible, and requires ongoing maintenance against the continuous pressure of the outer evidence. The specific skill of holding a desired assumption with a specific felt quality of genuine naturalness, despite outer evidence to the contrary, is not easily developed and is not immediately available simply because the principle has been intellectually understood. It develops through the specific practices of controlled imagination, consistent affirmation, and the patient accumulation of inner evidence described across the chapters of this audiobook. The intellectual understanding of the law of assumption is the map. The specific practices are the vehicle, and the destination is the specific inner condition in which the desired assumption genuinely feels natural rather than effortful. One of the most powerful applications of the law of assumption involves not the assumption of desired external circumstances, but the assumption of a desired identity. Goddard was emphatic that the most fundamental assumption a person can make, the one from which all other manifestations most naturally and most powerfully flow, is the assumption about who they fundamentally are. The assumption, I am the kind of person for whom genuine financial abundance is simply how life works, is considerably more powerful as a subconscious program than the assumption I will have more money next year, because the identity assumption organizes every dimension of the inner and outer system around the entire character of the desired life rather than around a single desired outcome. Identity assumptions, deeply impressed through the specific practices of inner picture work, shape the entire trajectory of life, rather than producing a single limited result. The relationship between the law of assumption and the outer world's apparent confirmation or disconfirmation of assumed states is one of the most nuanced dimensions of this teaching. The outer world will consistently appear to confirm whatever assumption is most deeply held, not because the outer world conspires to be obliging, but because the assumption organizes perception, behavior, and interpersonal broadcast in ways that generate outcomes corresponding to the assumption with remarkable consistency. The person who has deeply assumed that opportunities always seem to pass them by, will perceive the outer world through a filter calibrated to deliver evidence of passing opportunities while filtering out evidence of arriving ones. The person who has deeply assumed that the right opportunities appear at the right times will perceive through a filter calibrated for exactly that evidence. Both perceptual experiences feel like accurate, objective observation of external reality. Both are outputs of the assumption operating through the perceptual system. The most challenging implication of the law of assumption, genuinely held, is the degree of genuine responsibility it places on the inner life for the quality of the outer experience. The comfortable position of external circumstance as the primary cause of inner experience is dissolved by genuine engagement with this principle. This does not mean that genuine external injustice does not exist, that genuine external constraints do not impose real limitations, or that every difficulty in any life is simply the product of a mistaken inner assumption. It means that within whatever real constraints genuinely exist, the specific quality of inner experience, and to a significant degree, the specific quality of outer opportunity and outcome, are considerably more shaped by the dominant assumptions the person is operating from than most people have been taught to believe. That recognition, while demanding, is also genuinely empowering. The specific starting point for deliberate work with the law of assumption is the honest identification of the specific assumptions most actively shaping the area of life most ready for genuine change. Not the assumptions you consciously endorse or the assumptions you would prefer to hold, but the specific assumptions whose outputs are visible in the recurring patterns of actual experience. What do you assume, without examination, about the financial life available to someone exactly like you? What do you assume, without examination, about the quality of connection and genuine love available to someone with your specific history? What do you assume about the specific quality of creative work and professional recognition available to someone with your particular combination of gifts and limitations? The honest answers to these questions, held with genuine curiosity rather than with defensive self-justification, are the map to the specific assumptions most in need of deliberate revision. Chapter 6. Affirmations that actually work. The word affirmation has been so thoroughly associated with the specific mechanical recitation of positive statements while standing in front of a mirror that most serious people dismiss the practice before giving it genuine consideration. This dismissal is understandable, but costly, because affirmation, properly understood and properly applied, is one of the most consistently effective tools available for genuine subconscious reprogramming. What most people mean by affirmation when they dismiss it is not what this chapter means by affirmation. The mechanical recitation of positive statements, without genuine felt engagement, is indeed largely ineffective as a subconscious programming tool, for the specific reason that the subconscious responds to emotional intensity rather than to verbal content alone. But affirmation applied with the specific qualities described in this chapter is a genuinely different practice producing genuinely different results. The specific quality that distinguishes an effective affirmation from an ineffective one is the presence or absence of genuine felt engagement with the content being affirmed. The subconscious processes verbal content paired with genuine emotional resonance as programming level instruction, and the same verbal content delivered without genuine emotional resonance as background noise. This means that the length of the affirmation, the frequency of its repetition, and the specific wording chosen are considerably less important than the specific quality of genuine felt engagement that accompanies the delivery. A single affirmative statement held with genuine felt quality for 30 seconds produces more genuine subconscious impression than the mechanical repetition of 50 affirmations in 5 minutes without genuine felt engagement with any of them. The content of an effective affirmation should meet two simultaneous criteria that are often in tension with each other. It should be genuinely directional toward the desired state, describing the desired condition as current reality rather than as future aspiration. And it should be sufficiently plausible to the current subconscious state that it is received as programming rather than rejected as so obviously false that the subconscious generates the specific dissonance response of something is wrong here. The affirmation, I am now, one of the most financially successful people in my field, will be rejected as implausible programming by the subconscious of someone currently experiencing significant financial difficulty. The affirmation, I am someone whose financial understanding and financial confidence are steadily and genuinely growing, carries genuine directional content toward the desired state while being sufficiently plausible that the subconscious can receive it without triggering the rejection response. The technique of the affirmative question, developed by practitioners in the tradition of inquiry-based inner work, represents one of the most specifically effective applications of the affirmation principle because it bypasses the subconscious rejection response in a way that declarative affirmations cannot always avoid. The affirmative question is not phrased as a statement, but as a question that presupposes the desired condition. Why am I so financially clear and effective? What is it about me that makes genuine abundance such a natural part of my experience? How have I become someone for whom genuine creative success flows so naturally? These questions do not declare a state that the subconscious may reject. They ask the subconscious to search for evidence of a state it is being asked to presuppose, and the subconscious, faithful to its search function, will begin finding evidence that supports the presupposition rather than evidence that contradicts it. The specific timing of affirmation practice within the daily routine is as consequential as the content and the delivery quality. The morning transition from sleep to waking provides a window of approximately 10 to 20 minutes, during which the subconscious is in maximum receptivity before the analytical waking mind has fully engaged, and before the day's ordinary concerns have claimed the field of inner attention. Affirmation practice conducted specifically during this window reaches the subconscious with the same directness that developmental programming achieved during early childhood, because the brainwave state of the morning transition corresponds to the theta state that was dominant throughout the developmental programming period. The affirmations delivered in this window do not require the same volume of repetition to produce genuine impression as affirmations delivered during the analytically active hours of the ordinary waking day. The evening practice of affirmation, conducted during the transition from waking to sleep, serves a complementary function to the morning practice. During the evening transition, the specific content held in mind as the body settles toward sleep becomes the primary input for the subconscious processing that occurs during the sleep period itself. Sleep particularly the deeper stages of non-REM sleep, is the primary period during which the experiences of the waking day are consolidated into lasting memory and into ongoing subconscious programs. The person who falls asleep holding a specific affirmative picture of their desired life with genuine felt engagement is providing the subconscious processing system of the sleep period with the specific content most conducive to genuine, deep, durable revision of old limiting programs. The evening practice is not simply a pleasant way to end the day. It is the specific leveraging of the most powerful subconscious reprogramming window available in the natural 24-hour cycle. The emotional state most conducive to effective affirmation work is a specific quality of genuine, warm, settled appreciation rather than the tense, urgent, effortful quality that often accompanies the practice in people who are trying hard to make something happen. The trying hard quality carries within it the specific emotional signal of the desired state as not yet present, which is precisely the signal that works against the affirmation's goal of installing a subconscious program of the desired state as already current. The warm, settled, appreciative quality carries the specific emotional signal of already having something genuinely good, which is the signal that installs the desired program with the least resistance from existing contrary programs. Accessing this quality often requires a brief preliminary practice of genuine gratitude for specific current goods before introducing the affirmative content aimed at desired future goods. The measure of genuine progress in affirmation work is not the absence of contrary thoughts or the achievement of permanent, uninterrupted, positive inner experience. It is the specific shift in what arises automatically, without effortful positive thinking, in the specific situations most relevant to the area being worked with. The person who has been genuinely revising their financial program through consistent affirmation practice notices across weeks and months that the specific quality of their automatic inner response to financial situations has changed. Where previously the automatic response carried the specific quality of the old limiting program, the new program's quality begins to arise with increasing frequency and increasing naturalness. This shift in the automatic, unguarded response is the clearest available indicator that genuine subconscious revision has occurred. Chapter 7. Faith without evidence. The bridge between inner and outer faith, in the specific functional sense this chapter describes, is not primarily a religious concept and not primarily a virtue. It is a specific psychological and physiological state with specific effects on the magnetic quality of the inner world and specific consequences for the quality of the outer world generated from that inner state. The specific definition of faith that is most useful for the practical purposes of this audiobook is the one implicit in the phrase from Hebrews 11:1 that Florence Scovel Shinn quoted with particular frequency. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith in this understanding is not a pale substitute for evidence. It is a specific quality of inner conviction that functions as evidence in its own right, producing through its physiological and psychological effects the specific conditions from which the hoped-for thing most naturally emerges. The distinction between faith and wishful thinking is the distinction between a state held with genuine felt conviction and a state held with pleasant but detached preference. Wishful thinking is organized around the hope that the desired outcome will arrive, while the inner world remains essentially organized around its absence. The specific emotional signature of wishful thinking is the pleasant quality of imagining something without the specific physiological preparation for it to actually arrive. Faith is organized differently. The specific physiological signature of genuine faith is the relaxed but alert readiness of someone who genuinely expects what is expected to arrive, not with urgent, anxious anticipation, but with the specific quality of settled, patient, genuine conviction that the thing is on its way. The subconscious registers these two states as genuinely different and generates genuinely different outer conditions in correspondence with each. Building genuine faith, rather than simply performing it, requires the specific accumulation of genuine inner experience that supports the conviction being cultivated. This is why the practices of controlled imagination, deliberate affirmation, and the specific inner picture work described across this audiobook are necessary as infrastructure for genuine faith, rather than as alternatives to it. Genuine faith is not manufactured through willpower or through the repetition of faith statements alone. It is built through the accumulated genuine inner experience of inhabiting the desired state with sufficient frequency and sufficient felt quality that the subconscious begins to treat the desired state as familiar, normal, and genuinely expected, rather than as aspirational, distant, and uncertain. The specific challenge that the principle of faith, without evidence, poses to the analytically trained mind is genuine and worth acknowledging directly. The analytical mind is specifically designed to calibrate expectation to evidence, to not expect what has not yet demonstrated cause for expectation, and to treat certainty proportional to the quality and quantity of available confirming evidence. These are genuinely useful cognitive functions in many contexts. They are specifically counterproductive in the context of creating genuine change in the inner world, because the inner world changes first, before the outer evidence of its change appears, which means waiting for outer evidence before cultivating genuine inner faith is precisely backward from the sequence through which genuine inner to outer change actually occurs. The specific practice of building faith through the deliberate collection of genuine evidence that the inner work is proceeding is one of the most practically useful approaches available for the analytically minded person who genuinely struggles with faith in the absence of outer confirmation. The inner evidence includes the specific quality shifts in automatic responses described in previous chapters, the specific increase in the frequency with which desired inner states arise spontaneously, and the specific quality of synchronicities and meaningful coincidences that consistently accompany genuine inner work, even before dramatic outer results have appeared. Maintaining a genuine record of these inner and subtle outer evidences provides the analytical mind with a foundation for genuine faith that is more accessible than the demand for pure faith in the complete absence of any evidence of any kind. The relationship between genuine faith and genuine action is one of the dimensions of this teaching most frequently distorted in the direction of either extreme. On one extreme, genuine faith is misunderstood as requiring no outer action, as though the inner work alone will produce outer results without any corresponding practical engagement with the outer world. On the other extreme, genuine action is misunderstood as the primary vehicle for change, with faith reduced to a supplementary motivation for taking more and better outer action. The genuine relationship is more nuanced. Genuine faith, deeply held, generates the specific quality of inspired action that is qualitatively different from effortful, anxious, outcome-attached action, because it arises from the specific inner conviction of genuine alignment rather than from the specific inner urgency of someone not yet fully convinced that what they desire is actually coming. Inspired action, the specific quality of outer engagement that arises naturally from a state of genuine inner faith, has several distinguishing characteristics. It feels clear and specific rather than vague and overwhelming. It arises with a quality of genuine inner recognition, a sense of obvious next step, rather than with the anxious quality of something that must be done in order to produce the desired outcome. It tends to appear as opportunities to engage rather than as demands to force. And it consistently carries a quality of genuine alignment with the specific direction of the desired outcome, even when the specific mechanism by which that action will eventually contribute to the desired outcome is not yet visible to the analytical mind. Following inspired action is not irrational. It is the specific trusting of the inner intelligence that genuine faith produces over the limited perspective of the analytical mind working without access to the full picture. The most direct and most immediately applicable instruction available at the close of this chapter on faith is the specific encouragement to spend more time, beginning today, in the genuine inner experience of the desired state as current reality, and less time in the analytical review of why that experience is not yet current reality. Not forever, and not in denial of genuine practical action that the situation requires, but more than you have been. The imbalance in most lives is heavily weighted toward the analytical review of current reality and heavily away from the genuine inner cultivation of desired reality. Shifting that balance, even slightly, toward more genuine inner cultivation and less analytical review is the specific shift that most directly builds the quality of genuine faith through which the inner world eventually overrides the outer evidence. Chapter 8. How to use words to build a new world. In the beginning was the Word. This opening phrase of the Gospel of John, when read not as a theological claim about cosmology, but as a psychological and metaphysical observation about the relationship between language and reality, contains one of the most practically significant insights available in the tradition this audiobook draws from. Words are not labels attached to a reality that exists independently of them. Words are the specific form through which the inner world organizes and expresses its content, and the specific quality of the inner world's content determines the specific quality of the outer world generated from it. The habitual words you use, both in external speech and in the internal monologue that runs continuously below the surface of deliberate attention, are continuously programming your subconscious with their content and their emotional quality. They are the most consistently available and the most consistently underused tool in the entire repertoire of genuine inner development. The specific mechanism through which habitual speech programs the subconscious is the same mechanism through which any consistent, emotionally charged input programs it repetition combined with emotional intensity. The habitual phrases that populate the inner monologue of most people across an ordinary day carry genuine emotional intensity, not necessarily dramatic emotional intensity, but the specific, genuine, authentic emotional quality that the subconscious registers as real rather than as performed. The casual inner voice that says things like, "I am always the one who gets overlooked," or "This kind of thing never works out for me," or "I cannot afford to think that way," is not simply describing reality. It is generating subconscious programming with the specific content of always being overlooked, of things not working out, and of inability to think in the desired way. The subconscious receives the content as instruction and organizes the perceptual, behavioral, and interpersonal systems accordingly. Florence Scovel Shinn's teaching about the power of the spoken word is among the most specific and the most immediately actionable in the entire practical metaphysics tradition. She was emphatic that careless words are among the primary generators of unwanted experience, not because language has mystical causal power operating outside ordinary psychological mechanism, but because habitual language patterns are the continuous, daily, emotionally authentic source of subconscious programming content that most people never examine. The person who cannot change their words cannot ultimately change their life, because the words are not just describing the life. They are continuously reinforcing the subconscious programs from which the life is being generated. The specific practice of word consciousness, the deliberate monitoring and revision of habitual word patterns, is most effectively approached through a specific sequence. The first stage is genuine observation without immediate change, simply noticing what specific words and phrases arise most habitually in internal and external speech across a specific domain of life, without yet trying to change them, in order to get an accurate picture of what is currently being programmed. This stage is often more revealing and more uncomfortable than expected because the habitual negative language patterns that have been running without examination tend to be more pervasive and more limiting than the conscious mind believes before the monitoring practice reveals them. The second stage is deliberate substitution, replacing identified limiting language patterns with specifically chosen generative alternatives, consistently and without self-judgment when the old pattern returns, knowing that consistent repetition of the new pattern is the specific mechanism through which the old one is eventually revised. The most consequential language patterns to revise are those organized around identity. The specific words used to describe who you are, as opposed to what you are experiencing, carry the deepest and most durable subconscious programming weight, because identity programs are the foundational architecture from which all other subconscious programs derive their consistency. The self-descriptive phrase, "I am someone who struggles with money," is not simply a description. It is an identity statement that the subconscious receives as a specification of who this person is and what kind of financial experience is therefore appropriate for them. Revising this to a present tense, identity level alternative, such as "I am someone developing increasing clarity, skill, and ease around money," does not require pretending the current difficulty does not exist. It requires the specific choice to describe the direction of movement rather than the current position as the defining identity statement. The relationship between spoken words in external conversation and the subconscious programming they generate is one of the most consistently underestimated dimensions of the word consciousness practice. Most people understand, at least in principle, that their internal monologue affects their inner state. Far fewer people recognize that the specific words they speak externally, particularly in habitual social conversations, are generating subconscious programming through the mechanism of hearing themselves say these things repeatedly with genuine social emotional engagement. Every time a person describes their financial difficulty with the specific language of "this is just how my life works and this is who I am financially," to a genuinely sympathetic listener who validates the description, they have delivered a deeply emotionally resonant and socially confirmed piece of limiting identity programming to their own subconscious. Building a new world through words requires the specific courage of genuinely holding the inner conviction in the desired direction, even when the outer evidence and the sympathetic social confirmation of others is organized around the current difficulty. This is not the social performance of false positivity. It is the specific inner discipline of not continuously rehearsing the current difficulty in the conversations that generate the strongest emotional encoding, recognizing that those conversations, while genuinely validating, are also genuinely programming. The alternative is not silence about difficulty or dishonesty about current circumstances. It is the specific skill of describing current circumstances without the specific identity level, permanence implying subconscious programming language that converts a current experience into a defining characteristic of who you fundamentally are. The fruit of consistent, sustained word consciousness practice across several months is a specific shift in the quality of the automatic inner monologue that is distinct from and more fundamental than the changes produced by the deliberate word revision exercises alone. As the deliberate practice of choosing better words consistently replaces the habitual pattern of limiting words, the habitual pattern itself begins to revise, and the new, more generative language patterns begin to arise spontaneously, rather than requiring deliberate choice to access. This shift in the automatic quality of habitual inner speech is the specific indicator that the subconscious programming revision is genuinely occurring at the level where lasting change requires it to occur, rather than only at the surface level of deliberate performance. Chapter 9. The self-concept that creates your life. At the center of every subconscious program, beneath every specific belief about money, relationships, career, health, and every other dimension of life experience, is a single foundational program that might be called the self-concept. The self-concept is the specific, deeply held, largely unconscious sense of what kind of person you fundamentally are. What kind of experience is therefore appropriate for someone of your particular identity, and what level and quality of life you genuinely deserve to inhabit. Every specific belief, every specific expectation, and every specific assumption in every specific domain of life derives its content and its consistency from this foundational self-concept, which means that the person who changes specific domain beliefs while leaving the foundational self-concept unchanged is making revisions to the upper floors of a building without touching the foundation, with entirely predictable long-term results. The self-concept was assembled primarily during the developmental period described in earlier chapters, from the accumulated messages of the early environment about what kind of person this particular child was. Some of these messages were explicit and verbal. You are so smart. You are so difficult. You are not like your sister. People like us do not get to have that. Others were implicit and behavioral. The quality of attention and care received, the specific emotional responses generated by different kinds of behavior, the implicit standards of the household about what level of achievement, connection, recognition, and well-being was appropriate for a member of this family. All of these, accumulated across the years of the developmental window, assembled the specific self-concept that the adultee is now living from without knowing they are living from it. The most reliable way to identify the current content of your subconscious self-concept is not through introspective reflection, because the self-concept does not reveal itself through introspection as readily as through the pattern evidence of actual life experience. The most reliable method is the honest examination of what is consistently and repeatedly produced across genuinely different circumstances across multiple years. The specific ceiling that appears across different incomes, different strategies, and different periods of financial life. The specific quality of connection that appears across different relationships and different social contexts. The specific quality of recognition that appears across different professional contexts and different levels of achievement. These patterns are the self-concept expressing itself through the consistent output of its foundational program, and they are considerably more honest about the content of the self-concept than any amount of conscious self-assessment. The revision of the self-concept is the most fundamental and the most durably transformative inner work available, precisely because it is the foundational program from which all other programs derive their consistency. A revised self-concept does not simply produce different results in a single domain. It reorganizes the entire inner architecture of belief, expectation, and assumption around the new foundational program, producing correspondingly different results across every domain of life simultaneously. This is why the testimony of people who have done genuine, deep self-concept revision consistently describes transformations that appear across multiple life domains at once, rather than in a single domain, addressed through targeted domain-specific work. The specific technique most directly aimed at self-concept revision is the deliberate adoption of a new identity assumption through the consistent practice of living as if from the inside perspective of the desired self-concept rather than the current one. This practice, which Goddard described as assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled at the identity level, involves the specific imaginative act of inhabiting the specific felt quality, of being the kind of person who deserves and naturally inhabits the desired quality of life, rather than imagining what it would feel like to acquire a desired outcome while remaining the same person. The identity level shift is the specific shift that produces the most comprehensive and the most durable outer transformation, because the entire subconscious system reorganizes around a new identity with the same faithfulness it has been organizing around the old one. The resistance that arises when genuinely attempting to inhabit a desired identity that feels far from current experience is the most direct available indicator of the depth of the old self-concept program, and therefore of the depth of the revision work required. The person for whom inhabiting the felt quality of genuine abundance feels not just implausible, but deeply uncomfortable, activating the specific emotional response of who do you think you are, is encountering their self-concept program directly. This discomfort is not evidence that the Desired identity is genuinely unavailable or genuinely inappropriate. It is evidence of the depth of the established contrary program. Understanding the discomfort as program encountering revision rather than as self-knowledge. Revealing truth is the specific reframe that allows genuine continuation of the revision practice through its most challenging initial phases. The specific daily practice most effective for self-concept. Revision combines the identity-level affirmation work, described in the affirmations chapter, with the specific technique of behaving in small and specific daily interactions. From the inside perspective of the desired self-concept rather than the current one. Acting as if is the behavioral dimension of living in the end, and it provides the subconscious with direct behavioral evidence that the new identity is not simply an imagined future state, but a currently enacted reality. The small behavioral choices that would be natural for someone genuinely inhabiting the desired self-concept, taken consistently and without the specific self-consciousness of someone performing a role, accumulate across days and weeks into genuine lived evidence that gradually shifts the automatic sense of what is natural for someone of this identity. The fully revised self-concept produces a specific quality of life experience that people who have done deep self-concept work consistently describe in terms of ease rather than effort. Not the ease of a life without genuine challenge, but the specific ease of living from a foundational sense of genuine worthiness and genuine belonging in the level of life that the old self-concept treated as above your station. Things that previously required enormous effort simply to approach, because the old self-concept generated specific resistance to anything that would contradict its specifications, begin to feel natural, accessible, and genuinely appropriate. This quality shift, felt from the inside as a fundamentally different relationship to what is possible and what is deserved, is the direct phenomenological experience of the self-concept having genuinely changed at the foundational level where genuine, comprehensive, and lasting outer change originates. Chapter 10. Manifesting Relationships Through Inner Vision. Of all the domains in which the principles in this audiobook apply with direct, practical, and immediately relevant consequence, the relational domain is the one where most people feel the most personal stake, and where the principles are most consistently misunderstood. The misunderstanding takes a specific form, the assumption that manifesting better relationships means attracting specific people with specific characteristics, and that the inner work involved is primarily the work of imagining the specific desired person and waiting for them to appear. This understanding is not entirely wrong, but it is radically incomplete in a way that makes it far less effective than the more complete understanding this chapter describes. The primary object of manifestation in the relational domain is not specific people. It is the specific quality of your own relational inner world, which then generates a corresponding quality of relational outer experience through every mechanism described in this audiobook. The relational inner world consists of the specific assumptions you hold about how people relate to you, about what quality of care, genuine interest, loyalty, and connection you can realistically expect to receive from other people across different types of relationships. These assumptions were assembled through the early developmental experiences described in earlier chapters, and through the accumulated weight of subsequent relational experiences, interpreted through the lens of those foundational programs. The person who assumes, below conscious awareness, that genuine, sustained, unconditional interest from another person in them specifically is not realistically available to someone like them will perceive the relational world through that filter, will interpret ambiguous relational evidence toward that assumption, and will generate subtle behaviors that communicate their fundamental assumption about their relational worth in ways that other people's nervous systems respond to, often without any of this being visible to the conscious mind of either person involved. The attachment research, initiated by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth and developed by decades of subsequent researchers, provides the specific scientific framework that corresponds to the law of assumption applied to the relational domain. The specific attachment style developed in response to the quality of early caregiving, whether secure, anxiously attached, avoidantly attached, or disorganized, functions as a foundational relational program that shapes the quality of emotional connection experienced in adult relationships with a specificity and a consistency that is among the most thoroughly documented findings in all of developmental and relational psychology. The attachment style is not destiny. It is the current program, and it can be genuinely revised through the specific inner work this chapter describes, in combination with the consistent, safe relational experience that revision requires. The specific technique most directly applicable to relational manifestation is the construction of a specific inner picture of the quality of relational experience desired, held from the inside perspective of someone already inhabiting that quality of relational experience, rather than from the outside perspective of someone observing or hoping for it. The key distinction is again the inside versus outside perspective that Goddard consistently emphasized. Not watching a mental movie of being loved well by a desired partner, but genuinely inhabiting the specific felt quality of the daily lived experience of someone for whom genuine, warm, mutual, sustaining love is simply what their relational life is. The felt quality of being genuinely seen and genuinely valued, held with genuine body-level presence in regular practice, begins to install the specific subconscious relational program from which that quality of relational experience most naturally emerges. The self-love dimension of relational manifestation is the most foundational and the most consistently neglected. The specific quality of care, interest, and appreciation that a person extends toward themselves in the ongoing practice of genuine self-regard rather than self-criticism and self-neglect is the specific inner relational model from which all outer relational experience is generated. The person who does not genuinely extend care, genuine interest, and genuine appreciation toward themselves cannot genuinely receive these qualities from others with the specific ease that allows them to sustain and deepen the connection rather than unconsciously undermining it. Working on genuine self-love is not separate from the work of manifesting better relationships. It is the foundational dimension of that work, because the quality of the outer relationship experienced consistently corresponds to the quality of the inner relationship with oneself. The specific practice of extending genuine blessing toward people currently in your relational life, including people who have generated genuine grievance, is one of the most powerfully transformative practices available in the relational domain of this teaching. Genuine blessing, in this context, does not mean approving of harmful behavior or pretending grievances do not exist. It means the specific inner act of genuinely wishing genuine good for the other person, from a genuine felt place of care for their well-being, independent of their behavior toward you. This act, when genuine, changes the specific quality of the inner relational field from contracted, grievance-organized, hostility toward expanded, genuine, goodwill-organized openness, and the corresponding shift in the outer relational experience that follows from this inner field change is among the most consistently reported and most consistently startling outcomes available in the practical application of these principles. The relationship between the inner picture of desired relational experience and the specific outer behavior that this inner picture generates is more direct and more immediate than most people realize. And understanding this directness is what makes the inner work feel genuinely impactful rather than theoretically interesting, but practically disconnected from the actual quality of real relationships. When the inner relational program changes, the subtle, largely unconscious, behavioral cues that communicate relational assumptions to other people change with it. The specific quality of ease or defensiveness in the body during social interaction changes. The specific quality of genuine interest versus polite performance in conversation changes. The specific quality of genuine availability versus automatic self-protection in moments of potential genuine connection changes. Other people's nervous systems read these changes below conscious awareness and respond with corresponding shifts in their own relational openness, generating the beginning of a genuinely different quality of relational experience from the same social environment that previously delivered the old relational program's characteristic output. The manifested relationship, the genuine quality of relational experience that the complete inner work in this domain eventually produces, is not a specific, perfect person appearing in your life. It is a specific quality of relational consciousness, from which the right quality of genuine connection is simply what you naturally inhabit across different relationships and different contexts. The person who has genuinely done the inner relational work finds that the quality of their relationships across different domains of life, professional, familial, romantic, and social, shifts in the direction of greater genuine warmth, greater genuine mutual interest, and greater genuine depth, because the specific inner program from which all those relationships emerge has genuinely changed toward the quality of relational experience it was designed to generate. Chapter 11. Financial Transformation Through Consciousness. Money is the domain in which the gap between what people consciously desire and what they subconsciously expect is most frequently and most visibly dramatic. And it is therefore the domain in which genuine application of the principles in this audiobook tends to produce the most striking and the most specifically measurable results over time. The financial subconscious program operates with the same faithfulness as every other subconscious program, continuously organizing the perceptual filter toward evidence of the program's specifications, continuously generating behavioral choices consistent with the program's parameters, and continuously broadcasting the program's interpersonal content into every professional and financial interaction in ways that shape the quality of financial opportunity and financial outcome experienced. Changing the financial life permanently and substantially requires changing the financial subconscious program rather than adding better financial strategies on top of unchanged financial programming. The specific content of the financial subconscious program for most people was written primarily through early observation of how financial life worked in the specific household and community of origin. Children absorb not just the explicit verbal messages about money, but the specific emotional atmosphere that characterized the household's relationship with money. Whether money was a source of constant worry or of genuine ease, whether it was discussed as something that reliably ran short or as something that reliably appeared when needed, whether the adults related to it with chronic anxiety or with genuine competence and confidence. This atmospheric absorption creates the emotional template that the subconscious treats as the definition of what a normal relationship with money feels like, and it shapes the financial life with a specificity and a consistency that no adult financial education can fully address without corresponding subconscious revision. The prosperity consciousness described by Florence Scovel Shinn is not primarily a set of positive attitudes about money. It is a specific quality of subconscious financial program that treats genuine abundance as the natural, expected, normal state of financial life, rather than as an exceptional condition, requiring extraordinary effort to achieve and maintain. The person running a genuine prosperity consciousness program does not experience financial ease as something to be worked hard to produce and carefully guarded once produced. They experience it as the natural background state of their financial life, the specific quality of relationship with money that allows us opportunities to be pursued with genuine confidence, financial decisions to be made from genuine clarity rather than from genuine anxiety, and financial abundance to be genuinely received without the specific subconscious self-sabotage that a scarcity program generates when financial abundance arrives above the program's specified normal level. The specific inner practice most directly aimed at financial subconscious reprogramming combines the general techniques described in earlier chapters with specific financial content. The morning practice includes the specific affirmation of financial identity at the level described in the self-concept chapter. Genuine, present tense identity statements about being someone for whom financial understanding, financial clarity, and financial ease are simply the natural characteristics of your financial life. The evening practice includes the specific construction of the inner financial picture, inhabited from the inside perspective of someone for whom the desired financial reality is simply the current state of things, held with genuine felt quality in the maximum receptivity window of the sleep transition. And the daily language practice includes the specific monitoring and revision of the habitual financial language patterns that most consistently program the subconscious with their limiting content. The specific financial behaviors that arise from a genuine prosperity consciousness program are qualitatively different from the financial behaviors generated by a scarcity program. And this behavioral difference is one of the primary mechanisms through which inner financial transformation produces outer financial transformation. The person running a genuine prosperity consciousness program approaches financial opportunities with a specific quality of genuine confidence and genuine openness that generates different responses from the financial environment Then the specific quality of anxious, defensive, caution that the scarcity program generates. They make financial decisions with a specific quality of genuine clarity, rather than reactive anxiety. They pursue financial opportunities with a specific quality of genuine enthusiasm and genuine competence, rather than the specific half-heartedness of someone who does not genuinely expect the opportunity to produce the desired result. The law of circulation, described in various forms across the prosperity teachings of this tradition, states that genuine abundance flows toward genuine circulation rather than toward hoarding. The person who clings to what they have, with the specific fear that release means loss, generates the specific subconscious program of scarcity as the dominant financial reality. The person who allows genuine circulation, giving freely in proportion to genuine current sufficiency, generates the specific subconscious program of abundance as the genuine background state of financial life. This is not a moral teaching about the virtue of generosity. It is a specific description of the mechanism through which the subconscious receives either the evidence of genuine sufficiency or the evidence of chronic insufficiency from the specific quality of financial behavior generated by the current financial program. The specific outer financial changes that follow genuine inner financial reprogramming arrive in a characteristic sequence that helps to identify them as genuine program-generated change rather than simply good luck. First, the quality of spontaneous financial ideas and financial opportunities noticed changes. Where previously the perceptual filter, calibrated by the scarcity program, consistently delivered evidence of financial limitation, the revised program's filter begins delivering evidence of genuine financial possibility. Next, the quality of financial decisions made from the revised program changes, as decisions made from genuine clarity and genuine confidence consistently produce better financial outcomes than the same level of analytical intelligence applied from genuine anxiety and genuine scarcity belief. And finally, as the behavioral and perceptual changes accumulate into a genuine pattern of different financial behavior and different financial opportunity pursued, the overall financial trajectory of the life genuinely changes in the direction of the desired financial reality. The most important single instruction available at the close of this chapter is the instruction to stop reviewing your current financial situation with the specific quality of detailed, emotionally engaged, habitual attention that programs the subconscious with the evidence of current financial limitation. Not to ignore the specific practical requirements of the current situation, which require practical engagement, but to fundamentally change the quality of inner attention devoted to financial life. From the chronic, emotionally invested rehearsal of current limitation toward the consistent, emotionally genuine cultivation of the inner picture of genuine abundance. This shift in where your sustained emotional and imaginative attention actually goes, maintained consistently across the weeks and months required for genuine subconscious revision, is the specific inner change from which genuine outer financial transformation most reliably and most durably emerges. Chapter 12. Living the Principle, the Complete Practice. All of the understanding accumulated across the previous 11 chapters is genuinely valuable as understanding, but understanding alone does not transform a life. The transformation occurs through the consistent, skillful, daily application of specific practices organized around the complete principle this audiobook has been building toward: the deliberate, informed, patient, genuine prioritization of the inner picture over the outer evidence across the full texture of daily life. This final chapter describes what this prioritization looks like as a complete daily practice, how the specific elements described in earlier chapters fit together into a coherent daily structure, and what genuine progression from the beginning stages of the practice to the more advanced stages looks like in the experience of the person doing the work. The foundational daily structure of genuine inner work practice organizes itself around three primary windows. The morning window, the 20 to 30 minutes following waking before ordinary daily demands have claimed the field of inner attention, is the primary investment window for establishing the quality of inner state from which the day will proceed. During this window, the practices of genuine gratitude for specific current goods, identity-level affirmation of the desired self-concept, and vivid inhabited inner picture work aimed at the desired outcomes most currently relevant, conducted in the still receptive state of the morning transition, deposit specific, emotionally genuine programming content into the subconscious at maximum receptivity. The midday practice is not a formal session, but a specific quality of ongoing inner awareness maintained across the active hours of the day. This awareness is the specific noticing, with the minimal self-judgment and minimal dramatic effort, of the quality of the automatic inner state across different types of situations encountered. The financial anxiety that arises automatically in the presence of a bill is noticed as program evidence, rather than as accurate perception of financial reality. The relational defensiveness that arises automatically in a specific type of interpersonal situation is noticed as the old program running, rather than as appropriate response to genuine threat. The negative inner commentary that arises automatically in the presence of an ambitious desire is noticed as limiting belief, expressing itself, rather than as wisdom advising prudence. Each of these noticings, met with genuine compassion, rather than self-judgment, is the specific midday practice through which the old programs become increasingly visible, and the new programs have increasing space to assert themselves. The evening practice, the 20 to 30 minutes in the transition into sleep, is the specific consolidation window that most amplifies the morning investment. During this window, a brief review of the day's genuine evidence of inner and outer movement in the desired direction, held with genuine appreciation, combines with the specific inner picture work of inhabiting the desired outcomes as current reality in the maximum receptivity state of the sleep threshold. Whatever is held in genuine emotional engagement during the sleep transition becomes the specific content for the subconscious processing that occurs during sleep, which is the primary period of genuine memory consolidation and genuine program revision in the brain's natural operating cycle. Using this window deliberately is the most powerful amplification of the morning practice available. The complete practice, described above in its three primary windows, is not a rigid prescription that must be followed exactly in this specific form to produce genuine results. It is a structure organized around the specific principles of maximum receptivity, windows, consistent repetition, genuine emotional engagement, and the specific inside perspective inhabitation of desired states that this audiobook has established as the mechanisms of genuine subconscious reprogramming. The specific form each person's practice takes will vary with their circumstances, their genuine preferences, and the specific areas of life they are most actively working to revise. What cannot vary without undermining the practice's effectiveness is the consistent daily engagement with genuine felt quality rather than mechanical performance. The specific progression from beginning to advanced stages of this practice is recognizable through several characteristic indicators that appear in the interior experience of the person doing the work. In the early stages, the practice is effortful. The inner picture must be constructed with deliberate effort. The affirmations feel somewhat mechanical. The desired inner states require considerable effort to access and tend not to sustain themselves for long before the habitual old states reassert themselves. This is the normal initial experience of the practice, and it reflects the current depth of the old programs rather than the inadequacy of the new ones being installed. The persistence through this early stage, without demanding immediate results and without self-judgment about the quality of the practice, is the specific quality that determines whether the work eventually deepens to the levels where genuine outer transformation becomes visible. In the middle stages of genuine practice, sustained across weeks of consistent engagement, the first genuinely rewarding indicators begin to appear. The inner picture becomes more accessible and more vivid with less initial effort. The affirmations begin to carry a quality of genuine resonance rather than pure mechanical repetition. The desired inner states become accessible more readily and sustain themselves for longer before the habitual old states override them. And subtle shifts in the outer world begin to appear. Not dramatic transformations, but the specific quality of meaningful coincidences, appropriate opportunities, appearing unexpectedly, and the gradual shift in the quality of the automatic inner responses to relevant situations that signal genuine subconscious revision proceeding at the level where it needs to proceed. In the advanced stages of genuine practice, sustained across months and years of consistent engagement, the inner picture that was deliberately constructed with sustained effort in the beginning has become the dominant inner state from which the day proceeds naturally. The identity-level affirmations that required conscious repetition in the beginning have become the genuine background sense of who you are from which everything else proceeds automatically. The outer world has genuinely reorganized around the new inner programs, producing the specific quality of life that the deliberate inner work has been cultivating with increasing skill and increasing confidence. And the principle that began as a counterintuitive teaching about ignoring reality has revealed itself as the most sophisticated and the most genuinely accurate description available of how human consciousness, working with full understanding of its own creative mechanism, builds the specific quality of reality it is genuinely designed to inhabit.